Hello, today we are going to learn about Lambda functions in Python. A Lambda function is a special type of function in Python that is anonymous, meaning it does not have a name. It is also very short and is typically written in a single line. Unlike normal functions, which are defined using the def keyword, Lambda functions are created using the Lambda keyword. Lambda functions are mainly used for small, simple tasks that you do not need to reuse later. Instead of defining a function with a name, a Lambda function is created on the spot and is usually discarded after use. Now let's take a closer look at how Lambda functions work. First, let's recall how we normally do calculations using variables. If we have two variables, a and b, both set to the value 2, and we want to calculate a raised to the power of b, we simply print the result. The answer is 4. Now instead of using variables directly, let's use a function. To do this, we follow 3 steps. First, we define the function and give it a name. Second, we insert the formula inside the function. Third, we call the function and provide the values. Even though the result is still 4, this approach is more complex than just using variables. Now let's see how we can achieve the same result using a Lambda function. With a Lambda function, we do not need to define a function name. We simply use the Lambda keyword, specify the input variables, then specify the formula. For example, if we want to calculate x raised to the power of y, we create a Lambda function with 2 inputs, x and y, and the operation x raised to the power of y. When we pass 2 and 2 as the values, we still get 4 as the result. So you might be wondering, why not just use Lambda for everything? The reason is that Lambda functions are very limited. They can only perform one simple operation and do not support multiple lines of code. If you need a function that does more complex tasks, it is better to use a normal function. Now let's move on to our first practice exercise. We will create a Lambda function that takes 3 inputs, x, y, and z, and returns their sum. If we pass 1, 2, and 3, the result will be 6. Next, we will create another Lambda function that takes 3 inputs, but instead of adding them, it multiplies them together. If we pass 1, 2, and 3, the result will still be 6. Finally, we will create a Lambda function that adds x and y, then assigns the result to z. If we pass 10 and 20, the result will be 30. Now, let's move on to our second practice exercise. We will create a Lambda function that calculates y equals x cubed. If we pass 7, the result will be 343. Next, we will create a Lambda function that calculates z equals x cubed plus y cubed. If we pass 3 and 4, the result will be 91. Lastly, we will rewrite this Lambda function to store it in a variable z and call it separately by passing 3 and 4. The result will still be 91. Now let's move on to our third practice exercise. We will compare Lambda functions with the traditional method of checking if a number is even or odd. First, let's recall how we did this in a previous lesson. Using a for loop, we check if a number is even by using the modulus operator, which returns the remainder when dividing by 2. If the remainder is 0, the number is even. If the remainder is 1, the number is odd. Now let's do the same thing using a Lambda function. The Lambda function will take 2 numbers, x and y. If x is even, it returns x. Otherwise, it returns y. If we pass 1 and 2, the result will be 2, because 1 is odd, so the function returns 2. Now let's do the reverse. If x is odd, it returns x. Otherwise, it returns y. If we pass 1 and 2, the result will be 1, because 1 is odd. Finally, we can also use the filter function with a Lambda function to extract even numbers from a list. If we have a list of numbers 1 and 2, the function will return only the even number, which is 2. Similarly, if we filter for odd numbers, the function will return only the odd number, which is 1. This is how Lambda functions can be used in different ways. To summarize, Lambda functions are short, anonymous functions that are useful for simple calculations and one-time operations. They can make your code shorter and more readable, but they have limitations. If you need a function to perform more than one operation, it is better to use a normal function. That concludes today's lesson on Lambda functions. Thank you, and I will see you in the next session.